on her walk and she brings some treats.
Okay, hello everybody. As Colleen said there, if everybody can just mute themselves, that would be fantastic. And there will be, if you have any questions throughout the small taster of the webinar, please put them in the chat box and we will address them, or you can send them privately to me if you don't want them in the full chat box, and myself, Dermot and Michelle will answer any questions at the end. I'm kind of looking to the right here because I'm admitting more people as they come along, but just a huge thank you to everybody for signing up to this today and coming in. Will hopefully be short and sweet, and you'll get a nice brief look at what we're doing when it comes to our corporate and employee well-being services. In particular, the employee well-being workshop that we are now putting online. For quite a few years, we've been providing similar services face-to-face. But with everything that's happening now, we decided to push everything online now, so people can get the support they need for wherever they are, basically. A quick summary of who we are. Helplink Mental Health has been providing services since 2012. We started off down in the Crescent, there near Lower Salt Hill, and then moved to Merchants Road, and then finally in 2015 we moved over to the plaza on the Headford Road. So where our physical office, our headquarters is beside Argos there, and in the plaza building on the first floor. We also have another office in Mayo, in Kilchima, Mayo, which started last year, and our aim last year was to actually open up in Roscommon as well, but we're hoping, with COVID and everything happened, we're hoping that'll end up at the end of this year maybe, depending how things go. But as an organization, we have been providing, we're the only 7-day-a-week and out-of-hours counselling service within the west of Ireland. And we've also, I'm just going to share my screen with you now, just to give a quick look at our website. Hopefully some of you have seen it before. There now. So that is a brief one there of so it's helplink.ie, and we're a charitable organisation that provides accessible counselling, information and education mental health services. We provide this locally, as I mentioned there, in the west of Ireland, and nationally and internationally. We actually started off as just an online counselling service. So when COVID came along, we were actually in a really good position to adapt to what was going on, in fact, for a lot of people, we were other organizations were coming to us to ask us how we were doing everything. We help out within that as well. So we have a range of services there. Hear from children. So I just a quick, just for everybody who came in late there, just a little bit, if you could put your things on mute, that would be great. Helplink provides these counselling services, information, education services for children, young people and adults. So basically nobody will go without support with us. We support children as young as 3, and then we do, as I said, a range of counselling services, face-to-face. We also do online. We do couples and marriage counselling, which is both online and face-to-face, bereavement counselling, art therapy for children, young people and adults, play therapy for children, addiction counselling for adults and youth. And then we have an employee counselling service, which is very unique to the Irish market because it is a pay-as-you-go service. So you don't have to have a portion of your HR payment taken out every year. Basically, whenever an employee needs the support, they can get it 7 days a week and out of hours from ourselves. And then we would just invoice the company for those appointments. So it's basically an EAP counselling service that's available to any size of a business, small, medium, or large. Yeah, lots of information there on the website about that. I'm not going to take up a huge amount more of your time. Just to say, if you have any questions, you can always contact me as well, lachlan@helplink.ie. I'm going to now hand over to Michelle and Dermot. Well, first of all, I'll introduce you to Michelle and Dermot. They're two of our facilitators. Both have been with us for quite a long time, and they're highly experienced in supporting people, no matter what position they're in, whether it's a student or whether it's an employee or a leader. The workshop today that we are going to be doing with you is our employee well-being one. We also have a second workshop, which is for leaders, managers, supervisors, etc. And that has elements of this workshop when it comes to learning about stress and anxiety reduction, but one of the major components of it is how to deal effectively with somebody who is in crisis, whether that crisis communication, basically, whether that's the public coming in, our customer, or a member of staff. And we have done this workshop before with the likes of McCambridge's, and we are bringing that now online as well. So I'll be quiet now, and I will hand over to Michelle and Dermot.
Now, Lachlan, are you going to put up the slides for us?
Yep, sure. Sorry, everybody, if we can just mute there, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we begin?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right, thank you. Welcome everybody. My name is Jim Lavelle, and I'll be presenting this with the beautiful Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle. How are you?
And so this is a course that we've put together for well-being in the workplace. So could I have the next slide, please, there, Lachlan? Lachlan? Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So, so this employee wellbeing webinar is a live interactive workshop designed to educate and train employees to cope successfully with work and to resolve stress and anxiety in the workplace. So why choose this webinar? The stress and anxiety contribute to absenteeism, illness, and low productivity. It's very severe. Ireland is among the highest in Europe for workplace stress. These are the reference there. So this workshop is designed by experienced professionals, myself and Michelle, already using the content with clients and groups. So we use this in our day-to-day experience, and we've used it with groups, and we find it's very, very effective, the process that we're going to use here. Also, all the content in this course is backed up by scientific research. So that's what we're presenting to you today. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Michelle.
Okay, so next slide there. So to look at the objectives of the workshop, what we hope to do is educate and train the participants with necessary tools to help deal with stress and anxiety. And I suppose in our work on a daily basis, that's what we do with clients. So that's what we try to kind of bring into this, because again, some of the tools, we've given a couple of different things. Some of them will work for people, some of them won't. So we're hoping that they can kind of, I suppose, make it their own once they're finished with the webinar. We hope to promote lifestyle behaviours that will increase their well-being and overall resilience. And I suppose what it does then for the employees is it creates a dynamic, informed workforce that become confident in their ability to deal with stress and anxiety. And also it promotes well-being behaviours through experiential learning, increases confidence, and also self-efficacy. So next slide there. So this would be an example of a poll that we use kind of at nearly the start of the webinar. And what it does is kind of get people to start thinking about how anxiety and stress impacts them, and equally then how it impacts them in a workplace setting. And I guess that's kind of, I suppose, what we try to do is make it very much interactive. So these kind of things help to do that. So next slide. I'll hand you over to Jeremy for this one.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so this is basically, you often, some of you may be familiar with this. It's a cognitive behavioral process, and it's a matrix of state. So it goes into how the body and mind become stressed. And if you look there at the thoughts, that when we have thoughts, positive or negative, that affects behaviors as an arrow going through behavior. It also affects our feelings. It also affects our body. If our body is under stress, it affects our thoughts, it affects our behavior, it affects our feelings. If we have feelings, it affects our behavior, affects our body, affects our thoughts. So everything affects everything else. This is an important matrix here, because what a lot of people experience, especially in work, is they experience stress maybe through the thoughts that they're not getting on very well, or they feel a little bit isolated. That contributes to feelings, negative feelings, also contributes to sometimes negative behavior, and also contributes to sickness or stress. So you can see that there's a process there, and any part of that process that is under stress will affect everything else. So this is part of the psychoeducation that we present to people to make them aware of, well, that their whole process of thought, body, feeling, and behavior is a matrix, and it affects everything. So lots of people struggle with the vertical thing. They have negative thoughts or they've experienced stress, and those thoughts create negative feelings. Then the behavior goes on, then the body. And a lot of people then go, okay, I've got negative thoughts. We've all done it. I'm thinking negatively. I'm thinking stressfully. I think I need to think positively now. But that's a very, very difficult thing to do. So trying to combat thought with thought doesn't really work in the sense of stress, depression, and anxiety. Also very, very difficult to struggle with feelings there. Try to change our feelings or ignore our feelings is again very, very difficult. If it was that simple that anybody that was depressed, you just tell them to think positively. Okay, so it's not really very valuable. However, a very important process of intervention is through the body and through the behavior. So if you look at the middle line there, behavior, the body, these are things that are easy to change. So it's easy, and Michelle and myself will be talking about breathing and posture and body later on, that if you change the body, change your breathing, change your posture, things like that, then that has an effect on our feelings, which has an effect on our thoughts, which has an effect on our behavior. And changing the body or the breath may seem very simplistic, but it's very powerful. And that's what we're delivering in this seminar today. And that's what we find in our work to be the most potent. So taking that theme and running it through, we run that theme through the actual talk. And I'm going to hand you over to Michelle now, and she'll just take you through this theme of how we explain also things like anxiety and stress. Okay, over to you, Michelle.
Okay. Next slide there. So this is an area that we cover as well. Just back to the last one, yeah. Around anxiety, we cover, we look at 4 different areas: body, mind, feelings, and behavior. And again, this may impact not everyone exactly the same, but I think most people probably will have experienced some of these. So in the body, increased heart rate, breathing rate, dizziness, nausea, flushing, stiffness in the mind, worry, impatience, difficulty concentrating, poor memory, or racing thoughts. Our feelings then can kind of range from being fearful, being depressed, panicked, detached, separation, trapped, out of control. And then behavior, we may become avoiding of certain situations. We might find it difficulty to socialize. We might over or underreact. We might become distracted. And in extreme cases, then we might turn to things like drugs or drink to deal with anxiety. So we kind of get, I suppose, give a bit of psychoeducation around that to get people to think about, well, where do I fit in with this? Just to get an understanding of how anxiety impacts on them. So on the next slide. So then we look at areas about how to improve our well-being, and these are the areas that we picked out and covered. And as Dermot has said earlier on, we picked out these areas because we find that, number one, they help even with just with their own managing our own stress and anxiety, but also we use them with our own clients, and they're also all scientifically backed up. So each and every one of them would be backed up by science. So that's why we put them in, and that's why we're using them. The extras there on breathing, number 1, number 5, and number 8, as you can see there, those are the ones that we do practical exercises in the webinar with those areas, to give kind of, I suppose, practical exercise people can take away. It's the takeaway part of the webinar as well. And Dermot will be doing one of them within today's session, just to give you an idea of how it works. So those are the areas that we kind of cover within the Wellbeing. So, hand you over to Dermot again there.
The next slide there, Lachlan. So, okay, so here's, we're going to do a little bit of breathing with people, and we're going to maybe do a little breathing with you now. There's a lot of science going into breathing. Obviously, it's something that we do every day, so we don't really pay attention to it. But in actual fact, the types of breathing that we do are very, very important. And they have a direct effect on heart rate and a direct effect on mood as a result. So often during stress and anxiety, whether it's low experience like depression, or whether it's high, just like stress or panic, we have different heart rates. And high heart rate would usually be connected to a lot of stress. But also a high heart rate is conducive to excitement. So if we're excited and feeling very good, we also have a high heart rate. We have a low heart rate while we're experiencing depression, but also a low heart rate while we're experiencing calm and relaxed. Difference is the heart rate variability. So the distance between the heartbeats. And one of the things that we can control is the heart rate is the breathing. And so when we choose a particular type of breathing technique, we can even out the heart rate variability and change things like a high stress state to a more exciting state, a more positive state, or a low depressive state to a more calm state by doing this. It's very, very good for reducing blood pressure, for lifting mood and increased motivation. Now, a lot of these breathing techniques have been around for a long time, but are used by Western psychology an awful lot. And they've brought them into the laboratory to check them out, taking blood samples before and after breathing techniques to find out the presence of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, reduced cortisol levels and things like that. So it's been well studied. And one of the things we probably have done this breathing before is box breathing and 4-7-8 breathing, but there's many different breathings that you can use for many different things. One of the people who embraced the box breathing was the special forces, the SEALs, special forces in America. They're very, very highly trained, and they use box breathing. We're going to do box breathing in a while, because I suppose to be a SEAL, you might be on a mission and you might have to jump into the sea in the dark and swim down to about 30 meters and hang around down there without any waiting for orders. And you cannot have somebody in that depth of water under those circumstances panicking. So they use this particular box breathing. And we would have taught this to many clients as well. You know, concentrate in school, or people who are very stressed at work, we teach them box breathing, and we get very, very good feedback results from people practicing this. So we're going to practice this now, just so you get a taste of what people experience. This is just one of the things that we teach in the process. And so it's very, very simple. So the reason why it's called box breathing is that in a box, you've equal sides. So we're going to breathe in for a count of 4. We're going to hold the breath for a count of 4. We're going to breathe out for a count of 4. And we're going to hold the breath out for a count of 4. And there's the box. Okay, that's what it's called, the box. Okay, so if you'd like to, you don't have to. If you'd like to sit up a little bit straighter, so you can, so your breathing is, so it's easy for you to breathe. And just straighten your back, but gently. And we'll have a bit of box breathing. So now you know you'll have experienced part of the training of the Navy SEALs. So you're nearly there. You're nearly there. Okay, so let's try that. So just breathe out, normally and naturally. Breathe out. Now breathe in for a count of 4. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for a count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for a count of 4. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. And in. And breathe normally now. So you might have felt that you feel a little bit more calmer. Now, what we would do is we would encourage maybe people to do something like 6 to 7 to 10 rounds of that. And what that does, if they're in a very, very stressed condition, or if they're very panicky, to use that stress, what happens is the heart rate begins to gradually slow down. And so it brings them back, brings their state, their physiological state, into a kind of a stasis, into a balance. And then when the body and is in a balance state, it's very, very difficult to have stressful thoughts and emotions, because what that does is that it regulates and interconnects everything within the brain. So it opens the resources in the brain. Okay, so that's just one of the exercises that we train people in while on the course. Okay, over to you, Michelle.
Slide there. Thank you. So also we look at posture and how it can be a powerful way to change how we feel in ourselves. And even as you can see the 2 pictures there, you know, a more upright, relaxed posture can increase lung capacity and reduce CO2 and can make us feel good within ourselves, both in our mind and our body. It is also a great communicator both to others, but equally to ourselves. And that's a very important thing. And we talk a bit about this in the webinar as well, in relation to how we speak to ourselves. And one of the ways that we speak to ourselves is how we hold ourselves. So the better our posture, the better we can feel. We also look a bit around facial expression and how it can alter our mood. And we do some exercises both on posture and with things like facial expressions. And we look at studies that show how impactful that our facial expressions can be in terms of our well-being. So, and we go into that in more detail within the webinar as well. So, next slide there. And also, I suppose, and this is an area which all of us, or at least most of us, I would say, are experiencing at the moment, working from home with added stresses, maybe with homeschooling and things like that. So we cover a little bit of that within the webinar in terms of how to work best and work productively at home, while also taking care of ourselves, because that's very important. And I suppose a lot of the things that we've already covered in terms of increasing our well-being will help with this, but we also have included a couple of tips there, as you can see, and we talk about them in a bit of detail and kind of give examples and things like that, so that people can kind of, again, take that home with them and apply it to their own experience, and hopefully they'll find it helpful in terms of working at home and being productive while working from home, and equally while looking after themselves while working from home. So that's it. So that's that one. So we'll go on to the next one. And we've included this one here because it's kind of, I suppose, an area that's gaining ground at the moment. There's a lot of research gone into the benefits of practicing gratitude. it's a new area for lots of people as well, but the research has shown that in these areas, in relation to creativity, socially, physical, and also in our work life, it can be very beneficial for us to help us to practice gratitude. Also, we've read recently that it can make us more organized, so, and who doesn't want that? So again, I know some people may not have kind of come across this before, and you might be wondering, well, how can we do that? And we do go into that in a bit of detail within the webinar. But I suppose the idea is just for today's purpose is just looking at something very simple like a gratitude journal, where you can write in it like 3 things that you're grateful for, and that can be done. Usually the people do it either in the morning or the evening, but again, it can be done whenever kind of suits yourself. But and again, it's something that takes time, but it has been scientifically proven to be beneficial in these areas and more. So it's an area that we've just included because of that reason. So, the next slide for Dermot now, I'm finishing off there.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, this is part of maybe the informed process in the course. So this is more in psychoeducation. So it kind of looks at the human being, what we evolved into. So we evolved into being part of a social extended group. We had a natural varied diet, high physical lifestyle. A personal identity was given in a tribe, and we had a learning mindset. You had to learn an awful lot to actually survive 20,000 years ago. We had the security of a group, and we worked to natural rhythms. So that would be what we're mentally, physically, and emotionally made for. What you have is a list on the side. But on the right side, what we're now trying to cope with is a lot of social isolation, unnatural diet, low to no physical exercise. Identity or purpose is very individual, so that's lost. A judging mindset, you can thank Descartes for that. Insecurity and disconnection, and industrial rhythms. So these are the things that we're trying to cope with as human beings. The reason why we kind of present this kind of difference is to get people to understand that really they need to do a little bit of extra to feel okay in society. We do need a little bit of extra connection a lot of the time. We do need a little bit of physical exercise and identity and purpose and those kind of things. And we do need to give ourselves a break. So so people can kind of see that, you know, I mean, some employees are saying, well, what can we do to in order for our workers to feel okay? Often it's not the actual work itself that's the problem. It's basically trying to live and adapt to a modern society. Now, it's not, there's nothing wrong with a society either. It's we're adapting and evolving. The very interesting thing about the left side there, what we're trying to cope with, is that now, because we're working at home, we're getting more part of the community. People are now looking after their diet. There's a lot more awareness in physical exercise. People are beginning to readapt the learning mindset and begin to realize that the industrial rhythms of being a certain place at a certain time all the way through the year, they can, with the flexibility that now the internet and working from home gives us, that's beginning to resolve slightly, but we're still in evolution. So that kind of gives a person the reason why we should adapt into self-care practices like gratitude, mindfulness, exercise, social connection, is because it's very, very good for us, and we're naturally adapted and we naturally respond to those things. Okay, so that's the end of our show. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dermot and Michelle. Very, very handy. Just a quick thing at the end there, if you are interested in this webinar for your staff or for yourselves, it's an hour and a half long in total, with some small breaks within it. Maximum participants of 15 people. There's a fee of €450, but there is 10% off for Galway Chamber membership. So I'm just going to stop this now, and I'm going to put in here. Yes, host should have been able to, but he didn't, unfortunately, before he shared the screen. Fortunately, we haven't, we're just going on to the actual webinar facility from Zoom, but for today we didn't have that, unfortunately. So that is basically us. It's a very short taster there of what goes on. As you can see, there are skills within that that everybody can use and keep themselves well and build resilience during the week, during their working week and beyond that as well. But then there's also elements of education and information in there, just like our own work in Helplink. It comes right through that. So that information is power, as you all know. So the more information you have about taking care of yourself and self-care, the better off you're going to be, and the better worker you're going to be, etc. It becomes a better husband, in my case, father, etc., etc. So it works right through your work and your non-work life. So that is it from us, pretty much. If anybody has any questions, you're very welcome to put them in the chat there, or you're able to get in contact with us. As I said, Helplink support@helplink.ie is our main email, or you just go to our website, helplink.ie, and all the information is on that. Is there any questions from people?
I don't think we have any questions in. We have popped a link to the website in their lockdown, and a big thank you to yourself, Dermot and Michelle. And for everyone who attended today, we will be sending a follow-up email with all the contact details. So don't worry if it's already gone missing in the chat with all the lovely thank yous. Actually, you do have a question. Could you elaborate on what judging mindsets means?
Will I answer that question?
You can take that, Dermot, yeah.
Okay, so judging mindset is something, well, we're basically taught through a school system, and we're taught to evaluate things as right or wrong, or good or bad. So a judging system would be that we look at something, a problem or something like that, and we judge it very, very quickly, rather than an open thinking process where we hold the knowledge until we get enough before we make a decision. Judgments are usually okay in situations of safety, but when we get in situations of work or in communication, a judging mindset is very, very destructive. In other words, if somebody does a particular behavior, and a judging mindset will say, was that behavior good or bad, right or wrong? And then it'll make a fixed judgment and move on, which is very destructive. An open thinking system will say, that person did a behavior. I don't know why they did that behavior. I'm going to find out what that behavior means. I'm going to gather more information before I come up with a conclusion. So an open learning system is one of curiosity, fascination, and wonder. And a judgment system is black and white. Very good in safety situations, but disastrous in interpersonal communication, work, and learning. Does that answer the question?
Yep, seems to be.
Wonderful. I don't think we have any other questions come through yet, but as we mentioned, we will share contact details if anyone wants to get in touch with you directly. For anything like me, they think of a question 2 hours later when the webinar's over and you're supposed to be doing something else. So
Exactly. Thank you. And thank you so much to the Chamber for hosting us today. We really appreciate that. And it's great to be part of the Galway community, both out in there supporting you, but also as part of the Chamber now as well. So we really appreciate that. And thank you so much to Colleen. Thank you to Dermot and Michelle. And thank you to everybody that came on today. And hopefully you got a little bit of information that might help. And you're, as Dermot says, you're nearly Navy SEALs now after doing that. So we thank you very much. And as I said, there are the 3 different corporate services that we have there. We have this employee webinar, we'll have a leaders webinar for crisis communication, and we have our pay-as-you-go counselling service. So thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Okay. Bye. Take care.